any chance I get to be up here is a good day, right? I don't really think I need to say anything. I mean, I think Mike covered it all. Really, thank you so much. As over the last couple of months, as I've begun to prepare for today, it's like, why me? In May, we came up for Father T's father's funeral. And for the first time, I realized that my suffering, my sadness, my weeping was okay. And if you were here and you heard Father Murphy, the Solemn Vespers, the first thing he said was, Jesus wept. This is the shortest sentence in the English translation of the Bible. Those words appear after Jesus learns about the death of someone close to him, his friend Lazarus. And we learned that day on how Mr. Tyone wept because he was happy, because he was sad, because he was grateful. And this week, I've done more weeping getting prepared for today than I can tell you. So I'll be quick. That's probably not true, but I will try to be concise. I want to share with you a little bit about, it's interesting how many things in our lives, it stems from before and after, right? Before this happened, before and after. And that's a lot of what of my story is. And so you've been looking at Staff Sergeant Michael Harrison Simpson and myself on our wedding day for a long time now. And as you can see, in 2008, Mike and I got married, and he made me laugh, if nothing else. And it was my first real experience with the military. I married an American soldier. Mike came from a family filled with rich history, rooted to service in our great nation. Oh, I forgot the clicker. He followed his brother and his father and decided he was going to become a Green Beret. And when he graduated, this was when he graduated the Special Forces Qualification course at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Our son Michael, who did a reading earlier, was born and baptized there. Mike was Protestant. His father is an elder in their church in San Antonio. And I remember going through pre-Cana, and he was in Iraq. And I was the one sitting in the office with the priest, looking him in the eye during this whole thing. And he got to sit on the phone in a war zone. I felt like he had the better deal. But for some reason, for the life of me, even today, I don't ever remember a conversation about what faith we would choose to practice. And I can only imagine, we married in the Catholic Church, baptize our children Catholic, they go to Catholic school. I can only imagine it's because in his heart he knew that I needed my church longer than he would. We'll fast forward when Gabriel was born in 2011. I think I might have missed when Gabriel was born at Fort Base Lewis McChord in Tacoma, Washington, which is where Mike served with the 1st Special Forces Group. Not much different than when Michael was born. Gabriel, when he was born, Mike left about 10 days later. And it was a temporary duty or something. And my parents, just like the first time, flew in. They were there for the birth, and they cared for me and the boys after. The support that they provided me is something I will never be able to repay. You know, people have been fighting for our freedom for centuries, and the price has always been high. The price for freedom is carried by each and every one of us in many different ways. And I take for granted every day that I can walk into my church and worship the way I choose, that I can advocate for change when I recognize an injustice, and that I can simply speak up. Those who have served in our armed forces throughout history do so to leave the next generation a better tomorrow. My friend, our friend, Sergeant Major Greg Kelly, recently retired Green Beret, claims, "We do it for love. Love for our wives, love for our children, and love for our country." Mike, no doubt, did it for love. I want to share and hopefully it plays, but just share, I want you to hear his voice, and it'll tell you how much that he loved us. Maybe not. Brian. Of course this is going to happen, and it's okay if you don't hear it.
And I want to thank you for being an awesome mom and an awesome wife. And I hope that your day is going well. And I miss you. And I can't wait to come home and see you and our beautiful family. Bye.
Thank you. On April 6, 2013, Mike deployed to eastern Afghanistan with 4th Battalion Charlie Company, 1st Special Forces Group. He wrote in his journal on 8 April, "We have not traveled to the opposite side of the earth to wage war. We are going there to build infrastructure, connect the capital to the provinces, hold the roads, stabilize the economy." 1 week later, on April 15th, the Boston Marathon would suffer a domestic terrorist attack carried out by 2 brothers that would kill 3 people and wound more than 260 others. My father was at that marathon that day, and even though he walked away physically unharmed, the events shook him tremendously. As I communicated this with Mike, he chose to reach out to my father with words of encouragement. He said things like, "I'm sorry this happened. Some people are inherently evil, and we have to put our trust in God. Make no mistake, you will never forget that day for the rest of your life. You will start to look at things in a different frame of mind. Things that used to be important won't be. Things that used to be trivial won't be. Don't carry guilt with you, it's toxic. But most importantly," he said, "you are not alone."
It's me, Mike,
There it is.
your husband.
It's gonna play on a loop, I guess. 5 days later, Mike would be returning from a mission with his team, and he would hit 40 pounds worth of explosives within a pressure plate improvised explosive device. With critical wounds, his teammates would rush to him, clear the area to ensure a secondary device would not detonate, and they started to work tirelessly to save his life. He was lucid and shared how he felt immediately. I think I lost my leg. My hips hurt, my back hurts. I can breathe, I can see, and I'm not dizzy. His team made their way to the nearest base where a medevac could land to transport him to the hospital in Ghazni. While on this flight, he opened up his eyes really big and said, "Wife, kids, I love," and then went into cardiac arrest. The medical teams would again work tirelessly, and when they arrived in Ghazni, a thoracotomy was performed and was successful. They were all blown away. Somebody held his hand, and the other person held his heart in their hand and brought him back. Mike would undergo multiple surgeries over the next few days. From the moment I was notified, our community showed up. I didn't realize it then, but God was showing his love and mercy through these people. I was notified at 9:30 in the morning, and my mother landed in Seattle just 14 hours later. On the 29th of April, I would learn Mike was not expected to live. My father went to the airport, and Father T met him there. I learned they knelt on the floor, wept and prayed, without a care for their surroundings. What a sight that must have been to witness with such love, faith, and suffering. 2 days later, I would land in Germany, receive the official word from Dr. Betts that Mike was indeed brain dead. Father T would pray over him via phone, and the last Catholic chaplain on post, due to move a couple days later, would allow me to receive the Eucharist over Mike in his hospital room. I got nearly 36 hours with him before he donated his organs and saved the lives of 3 men, his last full act of charity. In the days to follow, I felt afraid as I didn't know what the future would hold. I didn't understand until much later, 2015, 2016, the year of mercy, that God was merciful in taking Mike home and that we would be okay. As St. Teresa's prayer says, we are exactly where we are meant to be. It's interesting because one of the first things that someone said to me was, "You must hate Muslims." No, that thought never crossed my mind, ever. As I don't know why Mullah Juma Gul planted that bomb, but I could only assume he was forced by some kind of evil. For him, for myself, for my children, I had to forgive him, and I did. As Father T said earlier, evil does not prevail. Michael attended VBS one year, and he came home with this book written by Alan Hunt. And I took it, and I thought, for his age, I think the first chapter was about divorce. And the book is called Everybody Needs to Forgive Somebody. And so I took it, and I said, we'll wait for you to read this when you're a little bit older. And then I started to read it. And in there it says, forgiveness unleashes the greater force of transformation in your life. Forgiveness flows directly from the heart of God and into yours. That force frees you from the wounds and bondage of the past, from the harm you have suffered, as well as from the harm you have caused. And it sets you free to move more strongly into the bold, divine future God has in store for you. We live in a land of the free, but are we really? Unless we have been delivered to Christ, like you today. As we continued to grieve Mike's loss at home, his team did the same in Afghanistan. Their families were brave and supportive as they waited 6 more months for their soldiers to come home. When I came home, I said to Michael, he was 3, and I wasn't sure how to tell him. And I said, "Do you believe in God?" And very similar to my reaction with Mike on the phone, he said, "Yes, of course." I said, "Even though you can't see him?" "Yes, Mommy," he said to me, without a doubt, almost annoyed with my question. I said, "You know Daddy is a soldier." "Yes." I said, "Well, Daddy's going to be God's soldier now." And he immediately said, "But I won't miss him." And what that told me was, there was no doubt in his mind where Mike was and where we would someday be. God provided a community that wrapped their arms around us, who became our extended family. We were never alone. It was incredible looking back on these pictures, standing in Arlington National Cemetery, how many people came to our side. The relationship that we've created with Father Tyone over the years has been the greatest gift to all of us. They renewed my parents' marriage, 4 sacraments in one day for my father, baptized Gabriel, confirmed and married our friend's last rites for Mike, his funeral, and married Gus and I. Romans 5, as you heard earlier, tells me the true gift in suffering. Each one of us has grown closer to God with every suffering moment. And I knew my children would too. They say there is no instruction manual for this life's journey, but I disagree. With every reading and every gospel, I find my footing, especially when Nancy reads. If you've been here on Fridays, she brings the Bible to life. Grief and Gratitude was how The Unquiet Professional was born. And it was Mike's nickname because he was so proud to be a Green Beret, following in his father and his brother's footsteps, that he announced it all the time. I would wake up and he would say to me, "How does it feel to be married to a big bad Green Beret?" And I would say, "Have you taken the trash out?" Or, "The baby is crying. Show me your skills." So a thank you note wasn't enough. To the community, to the organizations, the USO carried my kids through the airport, Special Operations Warriors Foundation, Green Beret Foundation, but especially our immediate family, our church, all of you. Today I have the gift to be able to walk beside others who have experienced a loss like ours, to make sure they know that they are not alone. And somebody said to me once, "But you must relive this every time." I suppose, but remember, each suffering brings us closer to God. And I've learned to appreciate that. Count on it. Look for it. This year, our virtual memorial mile honored Staff Sergeant Eduardo Laredo, Master Sergeant Gregory Trent. And these women, their wives, They have such an example of faith, and I listened to them. We were able to give them a voice through a podcast, through some publications, and they told their story. And my main objective was to make sure people understood that these women were not sitting in their homes weeping, although we still do that. They're out there impacting their communities at such a great level, and they do it in honor of their fallen, and they do it in honor of their husbands that are living today. Over the years, God placed us in so many communities that would encourage and empower us to move forward, to know that Mike's legacy lives on in everything we do. We honor and remember, and we celebrate a life well lived. God, family, country was the order for him, and we were now charged to carry that on. But I didn't have to do it alone. Gus was Mike's friend and teammate who I met after they returned from deployment. Many of you know the story of our love and how we struggled to accept what God had in store for us. When we shared we were dating in 2015, we had mixed reviews. Those who loved us and truly wanted the best for us supported us, of course. I didn't really understand the plan for my life until September of 2015 on a pilgrimage to Israel. It was life-changing. It was 35 of us, and you would think that we wouldn't have time to be with each other and to connect with each other so deeply, but we did. And as we traveled through and as we connected, these men and women immediately loved and encouraged me. And I'll never forget my roommate, Betty Ann. She had lost her husband 10 years prior to cancer. He was a fireman. And I saw her strength and perseverance, and I knew I wanted to be just like her. We met in Cana, and Father T renewed the vows of all the couples there. And they were more worried about Betty Ann and I than about their vows to each other until we refocused them and made sure we had the cameras and we were taking pictures and videos so that they would remember this time. One morning, about 4:30 a.m., Father T said, "Meet me in the lobby. We're heading up to the Stations of the Cross." And as we walked through this dark alley, this giant man came out of the shadows with a giant cross. And there we were, carrying this cross through the stations in Israel. This was Station 12, I believe, and Betty Ann and I carried the cross together. Isn't that what we do in life? Is we find our people in our community to help us carry our crosses? So I didn't really learn my lesson because the following summer, I struggled again. Sorry, I'm going to tell this part of the story, hon. And I decided that Gus and I just weren't on the same page. And I didn't know if it was going to work. I was obviously ridiculous. But for some reason, as I heard about Mary Magdalene the other day, I didn't feel worthy of love. I didn't feel worthy of happiness. And I wasn't sure I wanted to bring somebody else down with me. I didn't understand joy and suffering can coexist together, and I didn't believe anyone could love Michael and Gabriel like Mike could. So Gus and I separated. Days later, my father shared with me something Michael had found washed up on our beach. this little piece of wood, and it says, "I wish I could see my dad one more time." And the other side, it says, "I wish my mom will be finally happy for once." We know there's no coincidences. God planted that on my beach. But I think the other piece of it is there was another child out there just like mine, and they were not alone either. Needless to say, I came to my senses. I was reminded of the Holy Family and my father, who sits here with us today, who is not my biological father, but loves me more than anything in the world. And I was reminded of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus. Joseph is not Jesus' biological father. And how much did he love Jesus? And so I begged for forgiveness, and thankfully, he forgave me. And in 2017, right here, surrounded by 100 family and friends, Gus and I married. Gus found me when I was lost. As Mike said, Gus is the most selfless man that God could have ever chosen for us. He loves and cares for our family in a way that comes directly from Jesus. Well, after we married here, sorry, it's not the most flattering picture of you. That's what you look like after, I think, 30 or 40 days in Afghanistan. He had deployed. And I'm always looking up going, Lord, what are you trying to teach me? Because my husband landed in Afghanistan 4 years to the day that Mike died. I wondered what God had in store for me this time, but I knew whatever it was, he would carry me through, that you all would carry me through. Gus returned 6 months later, and we moved to Alexandria, Virginia, 8 months after that. We get to Arlington National Cemetery ever so often to visit Mike's grave and those of many others we know. This is my family. One of the greatest gifts Gus gives the boys and I is not having to choose which one of them to love. We get to love them both. I pray we do that well. I just thought I'd show you that. This is our life. Gabriel did really good up here earlier, didn't he? Well, and I am so grateful to tell you that last October, after 22 years of more than honorable service, primarily with the U.S. Army Special Forces, Gus retired. As he shared his remarks about his incredible career, there were stories we had heard, and there were some we had not. Some of those I wished I had not heard. His last statement was of gratitude to Mike's parents, Michael and Barbara Simpson. He said, quote, "No matter what I've accomplished in my career over the last 22 years, my greatest gift is being a father to Michael and Gabriel. Thank you for allowing me to raise your grandsons." He guides them by and to the Lord. He's an example to them on how a good husband and father serves God, his family, his country, and his community. He is a man of true integrity and grace. I didn't feel worthy of God's grace, mercy, and love. Yet the wisdom he gave me that begins with my suffering was what gave me eyes to see and ears to hear. He called me by name twice and said, "Get up." And then proceeded to open my eyes to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. You're going to hear from Sister Christina, who I love so dearly. And I wanted to share some things over the years with you as I close. We met in 2013, just a couple of months after Mike died. And she gave me my miraculous medal that I've worn every day since. And she said, "We've been praying for you and the boys. Father T called us. We've been praying for you and the boys." And every year we get to see her, and every year she instills wisdom into our hearts and our minds. And her family is so special to us. A couple of other things that have happened over the last 9 years that only God can orchestrate. In 2014, I was speaking at a golf tournament for Folds of Honor. Folds of Honor is an organization that provides our children scholarships to attend private Catholic school. And as I came off the stage, I was thanking the Marine that was there for being there and playing golf. And he said, "Ma'am, I was there." "Excuse me?" "My team cleared the area after your husband was medevaced out. I wrote his name on the board and I said, never again, and never forget." In 2015, I was in California at this swanky hotel that I did not feel like I belonged in, speaking again for Folds of Honor. And I came off the stage, and a man came up to me, unconsolably sobbing. And I said, "We're okay, it's okay." And he proceeded to tell me that he had served with Mike in the Maldives, and he just learned at that moment that he had died. In 2015, again, I was at Madigan Army Medical Center speaking to the commander and sergeant major about some administrative things, shared my story, and as the sergeant major walked me down to the administrative office, he said, "Ma'am, I'm not sure if you saw me shut down as you told your story." I said, "Well, that happens, you know." He said, "Ma'am, I was looking at your husband when you called Bagram, Afghanistan, and asked for a Bible to be placed by his bed." And my husband's least favorite story. In 2017, before we married, everybody said, "Don't do it, just live together. You'll lose all your benefits." We said, "No, that's not what we're going to do. It's not the right thing." As he shares with our boys every day, why do we always do the right thing? Because we're never wrong. And so we got married on March 13th, 2017. And on April 1st, 2017, after 10 years of being an E7, my husband was promoted to a master sergeant, and almost to the penny what he received in his promotion substituted for the benefits that I lost. God will provide when you do the right thing. The work that I do today surrounds me with military families, and I see more and more suffering and less faith. Less focus on family and marriage, and it breaks my heart. I sat on a panel next to the Surgeon General of the Army one day, and I was asked, "What do you think our military families need more of?" I said, "Faith." Because what you see in the Holy Family is what our military families need in order to get through the ups and the downs, the separations, the trauma. In the past 2 months, I have served 4 families of service members who have died by suicide. So today I ask you to pray. I ask you to pray for more faith in our military and for Jesus to pour himself into their hearts and to know that they are not alone. Thank you.